Welcome to Job Tales, the show where we find out about different professions from the people who know. Each week I speak to a new guest with a fascinating job. You'll hear about their personal paths to doing what they do, the skills required, and the tools they use for the job. I'm Laura Leoncini, and today my guest is Mauro Sponza, Director of Manufacturing at Michelin. Is engineering a must-have degree to work in manufacturing? What is a day in the life of a manufacturing director? Is it easy to find a job? What does the future hold for this industry? Let's find out together. Mauro, welcome to my Job Tales podcast. Today it's all about you. Thank you for being part of my list of guests, very special guests. And please, can you tell me in one sentence or two, what is it that you do today?
My main activity, of course, is to coordinate and manage the factories we have in Europe, and I would say bring them from the actual situation to the future, investing not only in a process or in products, but also in people, and I would say bringing Michelin Europe as a credible competitor, not only today but also tomorrow.
Okay, so you do everything that has to do with manufacturing, right? So anything that Michelin produces, manufactures in Europe, it's your responsibility. Is that right?
Yeah, all the tires we manufacture in Europe, yes.
The tires, okay, yeah, because of course the company has much more. But then, how did you get to manufacturing? It's something that we hear a lot, and in a lot in the industry. When you're talking about manufacturing, and there is, of course, something to be produced, to be manufactured, so factories and all that. What was your first experience in manufacturing in your life?
I'm a mine engineer, and I study at the Polytechnic of Turin. And after the military service, which represented for me a real formative moment, I spent 10 years to work in a factory, in a large plant in Italy. Okay, it's over 2,000 people, and in the production field. So I was hired as a workshop manager. Okay, and I spent the first part of my career in the plant with increasing my responsibility, or I would say, in the different passages, from workshop manager to production manager. And there are two moments in my career that are say, sort of breaking up. Okay, the first one was in 2008 when I resigned, and I went to France to work for a smaller company, always in the manufacturing as operation director of our European business unit for 4 years. And the second one in 2019 when I moved back to France and I took the role of business unit director for the company I work for. So I spent practically most of my life working in manufacturing, and I joined manufacturing because at the end I was an industrial engineer, so it was quite natural for me to, I would say, to start to work in a factory or in an industrial organization.
So it brings me to one question, one basic question, let's say, being not an engineer myself. And when you start engineering studies, do you need to have already a specific idea as to whether you're going to be in an industrial engineer or not? Or is there like maybe a buffer time of 2 years or more where you can then choose and become, when you see you're good at something more than other?
But it's a good question because when I started study at the beginning of my studies, I had no idea. Honestly, I had no idea. So I was studying as a mining engineer. I would say my idea was probably to work for some oil platform or something like that. But in which role was not clear. Normally, when you start to study in engineering studies, normally you think about technical design or research or something like that. But at the end, during the last years, so the last 2 years, because of the crisis of the mining at that time, I moved from, let's say, from a specific sector as mining to a more open sector as a industrial environment. So at that moment, it was quite natural, as I told you, it was quite natural that at the end of my studies, I was to be hired from an industrial group.
So you studied a total of how many years before you became an engineer?
So I studied 5 years because it was before the reform, so it was 5 years long. And, I did not take full advantage of my study at that time. This is my sensation. So I was left a little bit with the desire to learn a little bit more. So in 2002, 2004, I followed one of the first online MBAs, the BBS, the Bologna Business School. And still 20 years later, so in 21, 22, I obtained a second master's degree in business administration in the aviation sector. This is just to tell you that when we speak about long life learning, it's today a reality.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, and was it something that your job was kind of inspiring you to do? Did you feel like you needed extra education for your present job, or is it out of interest?
It was at the beginning. So the first time was because I was motivated to accelerate my path in the company. So I was interested in, I would say, having a wider preparation concerning the business. And this, of course, helped me in some way to open the eyes, to be more open in my journey, and this gave me also the opportunity to arrive to manage a business. The second one was more specific because I was not so prepared in terms of aviation, so I was not my specialty, and aviation sector is very very specific and complicated.
Specific,
Yeah,
yeah.
so this is the reason why I decided to invest 1 year in a second master.
Okay, I see. Having spent now many years in manufacturing, what are the main skills that you have acquired over the years to do this job right?
I would say that definitely the important skills are more the soft than the hard in my job. Even if
Hmm.
it could be, it could seem the opposite. Of course, it's important to understand how a production process works, to understand the materials that are processed, to understand the flow. What are the parameters, the important parameters, the indicators, etc. But I would say that all of this is useless if in our work if it's not associated to the ability to listen, to have an open dialogue, to empower the teams, to have the courage to make difficult choices sometimes, and to have human respect. So for me, soft skills today are fundamental key success factor and key, I would say, success satisfaction
Yeah.
in this job.
Right, because I imagine that you have a large number of employees that are working for you, and you have like a large team, and it's all about human relationship, right? At the end of the
Yeah,
day,
yeah, it's really key.
it's very key. Yeah. So you, in terms of let's say you mentioned a couple of soft skills. Now the hard skills, of course, being important. Can you mention a couple of hard skills? Like, and my latent question in that is, do you have to be an engineer in order to have the job you have today?
Good question. I would say today is not fundamental to be an engineer. Of course, at that time, it was a natural for an engineer to say to enter into this job, and it was natural that the first candidates, the first profile was the good profile was the engineer. But today, because of the I would say the importance of the soft skills, I would say the opportunity is open to many other profiles. And
Mm.
as I told you, for sure, you need some hard skill. You need some hard skill because you need to understand, for example, the lean manufacturing principle. You need to understand the key indicators, how to manage the flow. So, but this is not so complicated to learn. It's something that you can learn by doing. And anyway, what is key is the willingness to learn and the ability to stay humble and to listen. People that, of course, when you arrive, when you start, know very, I would say, better than you what is the reality.
Yeah, for sure. So now going back to when you finished your studies and you got your first job, how did you land your first job? Which is a problem that probably most of the
Yeah,
young people will have to face after their studies or their training.
I remember this was a if you want a hard time for me because after the polytechnic and the military service during this first period, okay, so I started to look for work normally. And for a month, or a couple of months, I found nothing, not an answer, not an interview. So it was the period of probably I suffered the most. My wife always still remembers that month I was really suffering. Then I found a temporary job in a small company, and this of course helped me to, let's say, to enter in the world of the job.
Mm-hmm.
And during this first contract, of course, I continued and I started to do some interviews. And finally, after a long selection process, I received the confirmation that I would be hired in a large industrial company. In that case, it was in the plant in Cuneo. So from there, I would say from the ground, I was able to begin my journey. It was the occasion, the opportunity was the first career day that was organized in the Turin Polytechnic. It was absolutely I would say, it was really a case.
Yeah, it's not easy to get your first job, and it could be frustrating, like
Yeah,
as
it's
yeah, as
yeah,
your wife remembers.
yeah.
Now, in what do you find your job interesting? Now, this could be like a $10 million question, but yeah,
Mm.
how is your job interesting? Like, if someone were to decide today, based on your interview, that yes, manufacturing is the way I want to go, why?
But I think the manufacturing is a very underestimated field. It's
Okay.
working in production at all levels. Okay, from business unit leader to workshop manager, production manager, site manager, is a very interesting job. Every day different. Of course, you wake up early. Of course, as I told you, you need to have good soft skills because you need to stay humble. You learn every day. You learn every day from people that are more skilled than you, and you need to coordinate subjects that sometimes you don't know, and you need to take decision without having all the parameters. But it's a very dynamic job, and what is also very interesting is that the environment, the working environment is, I would say, is very positive. In the factory and in the industrial organization, we look at concrete, we look at facts, and it's very rare. You can have, of course, a different point of view. You can have also discussions, but there is how can I say, is a healthy working environment because the values are there, and the quality of relationship is really very good.
And also, there's a real result, let's say, like a concrete result that you can touch on at the
Yeah,
end
exactly.
of
And
the
you have
line.
also at the end a concrete result. And this is also, by the way, the reason why we speak about manufacturing and not production.
Yeah, a good point. And we hear a lot about supply chain and all that. Can you tell me your relationship with supply chain in the manufacturing?
Phew, it's a,
In
no,
one
it's a
word.
very interesting question because when I changed my job, so the first part of my career was really concentrated in the production area, in the manufacturing area.
Mhm.
But when I changed it at the beginning, I had a lot of difficulties because of the supply chain. In the sense that I didn't understand why, even if had the responsibility of a part of the supply chain, the result was not, I would say, at the expected level. Okay,
Yeah.
customers were not so satisfied, even if we made all the efforts to satisfy them. At the end, this obliged me to understand better. Okay,
Yeah.
so what I understood was, first of all, that production is just one part of the supply chain, but is of course an important part, but it's just one part. So we need to look upstreams and downstream, and we need to collaborate with the upstream, so with the purchasing, for example, and downstream together with the customer service, in order to be sure that we are working on the right data. Because at the end, above all for the big organization, above all the risk is to have long chain, and the long chain are always by definition creating issues, okay, for the
Right.
customer. So if we really want to work starting from I want to satisfy my customer from the operational point of view, we need to have a short chain and a very good interaction, very strict interaction between I would say the main parts of the chain. That means customer service, logistic, production, and purchasing.
Yeah, it's not easy. I mean, you make it sound like it's easy, and maybe it's your engineering background. But yeah, there's a lot of there's a lot to be taken into account. What would be like? Can you share a typical day in your life and the life of manufacturing?
But as I told you, in the manufacturing, normally you wake up early because you like to have, I would say, the knowledge and the comprehension of what happened during the day before starting to work. So today I made some routine work until 8 a.m. But by the way, I don't accept a meeting before 8:30. This
Okay.
because until 8:30 I meet with my team to have coffee and talk openly and informally together.
Okay.
After that, well, the day is about formal and informal meetings, studying and analysis in order to develop the strategic vision, because of course my role today is more strategic than
Right.
operational. Decision making, meeting with people, visit to the plants. So normally this is, let's say, the normal day of in my life. And when I'm at the office, the end of the day is a mandatory or almost mandatory for 6:30 p.m. So not too late. When we went together with my wife and we stayed together, we go for a walk, a shopping, or a bit of sport.
Nice.
And in that way, for emergency, there is still the after dinner, I would say. But and
Okay.
everything else can wait for tomorrow. So
Okay.
I try to keep a good work-life balance because in our job is quite easy to become too operational. So spend a lot of time in items that are not in our level of responsibility.
No, it's excellent. Yeah. Is there something that you've learned from the past, that the young crowd of today could be benefiting from? It's like, okay, this is something that you should know today that I've learned 20 years later. What is it?
Yeah, yeah, of course, I learned from my mistakes.
Yeah.
There are a lot of things that I would have done differently, of course, but just because I was wrong. Among these, the few that have really hurt me, and by the way, that made me grow the most, I would say, are the mistakes that I made due to, I would say, lack of courage, if you want. So if I have to keep a message and never choose for your personal convenience, never think you can tell it, and never pretend not to have seen it or something like that. So never accept I would say, to take decisions that are not the right decision. And normally the right decisions are always clear. So
Mm.
I made for sure some mistakes. Another thing that I learned over the time was the fact to accept that we are not unfiling superheroes. So we need really to, I would say, to accept also the fact that we can take a wrong decision, but more decision is complex, the more we need to take it collectively, because this is the best way to avoid any fail.
So to work together
Yeah, for sure.
and try to solve the issue. Okay. And to take, as they have courage. Is that your message as well?
It's courage is something that you need to show every day, I would say, because a lot of decision every day that you need to take. Sometimes they are complicated decision, complex decision. So again, asking for not only one person, but a collective decision, working together with the team and working together with the other teams at our level. And this is the key for me, but also I would say, for the group I work for.
Yeah.
This is the key to face courageous and a difficult decision.
I have one last question about the future. Talking about the future and the past mistakes and the future. There's a lot going on today that's, new technologies, AI, and cybersecurity, big data. Now, how does that affect the manufacturing world?
Yeah, I would say the industry is calling loudly. It is as I told you, an area of work that is underestimated, in my opinion, due to mere ignorance. Because today, I would say, there are so many contexts that are hyper competitive with a low level of humanity. and where the meaning is by the end reduced to the salary. Probably I'm exaggerating a little bit, but not so much. Here in the industry, people could come and work helping us to accelerate the transition from a profit-driven world to a world that balances profit, people, and the planet. In industry, it can be made with our one's own end, I would say. This is, by the way, the reason why we call ourselves manufacturing people. We can do it concretely, as you said, as you told before, and working certainly in a humanly supportive and high-tech environment. And speaking about high-tech, and thank you for your question, today the real mission of the industry is to make innovation available to the public and create value, not just profit. So to manufacture today means not only to produce using the latest generation of technologies, but also taking care of all the social environmental problems that the fourth industrial revolution has left unsolved, starting with the increase of inequality, pollution, fundamental human rights, democracy. This is what we call the Industry 5.0. And the Industry 5.0 is, for me, a real cultural revolution that relocates the industry in the contemporary world in which it operates. And, by the way, Industry 5.0 transformation is already a reality in our production site today. So,
yeah, I bet. Yeah, especially for such a large group as Michelin, I'm sure that you're already, up to speed about this. So there's definitely also new jobs that are going to open up. I'm sure also in the manufacturing. Yeah,
absolutely. We are looking for good talents, not only engineers, so coming from different areas, different profiles, but we are really interested in asking, in giving opportunities to younger people.
the young generation, yes,
Young
and
generation.
I hope that the young generation is listening.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I want to thank you, Mauro, very much. And our time is up, unfortunately, but I wish you all the best, and for the next challenges with new technology, etc., in the manufacturing world.
Thank you to you for the opportunity, and goodbye.
That was Mauro Sponza, Director of Manufacturing at Michelin. I invite you to write a comment or a rating on your favorite podcast player. It will help me improve my next episodes. You can also write me directly at jobtalespodcast@gmail.com.